If you want to hear the outcome of Battle of the Brands number 4, Illuminating Powders, then stick around. I cannot believe it's been 47 days. I introduced this Battle of the Brands in mid-December, and I really wanted to try these products out and do a good job. And really, I think Battle of the Brands, if I don't spend a whole lot of time, I don't think that my thoughts would be all that useful. So I appreciate your patience, but let's get into it. I have definite views on how they are. And the products I'm talking about are some products from Becca, products from Hourglass, and Guerlain. Guerlain, I only have one product, the Meteorite or Meteorites. And then when it comes to Becca and Hourglass, I have more than just the illuminating powders. So we are going to go through what it is that I tested out against each other, and then I can give you my thoughts. So what really prompted this video was the whole deal with this Be a Light palette that I believe is still for sale at a discount at Sephora. Okay, big downfall of this thing. I have to use my tweezers to get in here and actually open it up. It just does not open, even though I've been using it for days. I won't say weeks, but I used it many days. This is what the inside looks like. It has a blush, what they are calling a contour, and a brightening and blurring powder. I think I've got those right. Yeah, brighten and blurring powder. So this is really, when it comes to powders, can pretty much be a full face of what it is that you need. Blurring for as a kind of setting powder, and then the brighten as can work as just an overall illuminator or a highlighter depending on how intensely you apply it in various areas. So this thing was about $35 Canadian for me, and I was comparing it to this Hourglass Ambient lighting palette. What's it called exactly? Ambient lighting palette, yeah. And it includes dim light, incandescent light, and radiant light. So dim light, incandescent light, and radiant light. And this is the first palette that I had. I did get it at a somewhat of a discount from someone who bought it and regretted it but had never used it. So I was very happy to pick this up from this person. I had been somewhat intimidated in using it, even though I saw a number of folks online using it and whatnot. And so it stayed in my collection without getting used more than once or twice for a while. And it was just a great chance to compare it now, finally, as I'm getting more comfortable in makeup, with that Becca powder. And I did find that there were quite a few similarities in the blurring. I don't know if you can see, there we go, with blurring and radiance or illuminating powders. The shades are not that far off. I think you can see the similarity there, and then the similarity here. So I just found that they were very complementary to each other. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I found that they were very comparable to each other. And then because the Becca palette has a blush, and they call it a contour, but to me it's too orange for a contour. This is what they're calling a contour. Well, to me that's a bronzer. Like a contour would be more cool. I decided that I would compare then those two products to a few equivalent Hourglass products. So I have two minis here. I've got the Luminous Bronze Light, which looks like this. I had that for a while, but really wasn't using it all that much. And then the Mood Exposure Blush. This one is the newest item in my collection. And I decided not to stop there. I had the opportunity to get the Becca Hydra Mist Powder. And I compared it to the Hourglass Veil Powder. So it looks like this. And the sifter, which seems to be quite popular to show. So here you go, there's the sifter. I was initially going to buy the mini of this, but it was always out of stock during the kind of holiday season, so I just ended up getting the full size, and I don't regret it. Oh, and finally for Becca, I also used a few of the Becca highlighters, the Opal being my #1 highlighter that I used from that brand. Finally, I also looked at Guerlain. And Guerlain is a product that I've always been curious about, and it comes in this beautiful container. And you'll always see it with my perfumes back here. I just love to show it off. It is beautiful. It comes with a sponge inside to protect the little balls of powder. And so I wanted to try that as well, because this little puppy is, I think, $73 Canadian, and like it's expensive. So I wanted to compare these 3 items, and I thought I would just give my overall thoughts right off the hop. Let's start with the powders. What I mean is the illuminating powders, which was the whole point of this battle of the brands. I know that there are camps, the Hourglass camp and the Becca camp. And I would argue that if you like the effects of the Hourglass ambient lighting palette, you are likely to like the effects of the Be a Light. And there are 2 versions of Be a Light, and there's only 1 version of this one. So there's a light, medium, and medium dark. So you can also match your skin tone a lot better. But the Becca palette is half the price of the Hourglass palette. It also has a significant amount of product, plus it has the contour and the blush. So if I were to recommend one of these, I would definitely recommend this one. I guess if space is a consideration, then maybe this one, but you still need a blush and a contour. So to me, yeah, this was the better deal. I think they both work really well. I have no issue with either one of them. They're fun to use. The only drawback for the Be a Light is, again, the fact that it's really hard to open. But I use the side of my tweezers and just prop it open. You can use a nickel or whatever. Once you have a little something to open it up with, it's not a big deal. At least you know it won't open up in your suitcase or something. Although, because of the raised nature, I'll just open this up again. Because of the raised nature of the powders, I would be really nervous about traveling with it. And I don't know if you can see the rough nature of the powders, but it just makes me feel like they're not super secure in there, and I just wouldn't want to bang it around. When it comes to the Hourglass products, they are domed, but somehow the dome feels like it's more in line with how the powders would wear, and somehow it just feels like it's a better structure for the powders. I could be totally wrong, but that's the feel I get from this palette. Now let's talk about the bronzers and blushes. I felt like the Becca blush and bronzer were more saturated color. So if you like a more intense blush, I would definitely suggest that the Becca blush and bronzer, the Becca would give you more oomph. Now, I am comparing different colors though. I only have 2 from Hourglass and the 2 that came in the Becca palette. And you can see from what you saw in the Becca palette and in the Hourglass options here that I did pick some more muted colors for Hourglass. So it could very well be that it's just that I didn't pick something quite as punchy in blushes as is available in the Becca palette. I do find though that the Hourglass formula feels like you can just build up a color nicely, as opposed to, I didn't feel that way so much about the Becca blush. The Becca bronzer, it looked like I could go light and build up, but the blush felt like I got more color right away. So out of the two, if you're more sheepish on the amount of bronzer and the amount of blush you apply, Hourglass may be your preference. When we talk about powders, I'm going to talk about these two for now. You may have heard this already. The Hydra Mist, now this is just a little sample. I think it was 2.5 grams-ish. Yeah, 2.5 grams. And it comes with it's an interesting sifter. I just found that I was putting the sifter upside down right onto my powder brush, and the right amount was coming out. I understand from other YouTubers that this powder does not have a very long shelf life, so I used a ton of it. You can see how far down I am. I don't have very much left. And I was using it quite aggressively because I am worried about it going bad. Apparently it has a 6-month shelf life, and part of it is the consistency of the powder. It feels like it has water in it. So when you apply it on the skin, it feels very cooling right up front, and there's no question you know exactly where you applied powder because you can feel this coolness on the skin, and it does feel wet when it applies, but it leaves a very powdery finish. So it's not cakey or anything, it's definitely powder, but the feel when you apply it, you know that there's some form of hydration happening as you apply the powder. It's the weirdest feeling. And because of the weird feeling of it, I just plan on using it and just being done with it and probably reusing this little container for travel. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan, especially if I understand, because I keep powders for a longer period than 6 months. I understand that this goes bad at about the 6-month mark. Mel Thompson is the one who really informed me on this, that I'm going to be using it heavily, and I used it heavily during the 40 plus days, but it's more so because I don't want to waste it. I don't want it to go bad. It's a weird experience. If you get the chance to try a sample, go for it. You'll see what I mean. Definitely not a powder that I would purchase. I, again, would be concerned about shelf life, and I don't find the experience super pleasant. Maybe when it's 40 degrees Celsius outside and I'm just dying, maybe this would be a good powder, but again, based on the shelf life, it won't last till July. So enough said on that one. Now let's talk about the Hourglass Veil powder. I have not used this powder as much as I used the Becca Hydra Mist, as mentioned, because I was worried about the other one going bad. However, at least on my skin, this powder is beautiful. It gives a beautiful finish on the skin. I love it as a setting powder. I think it is very flattering. It complements my other makeup. I put it on and I went, wow. I'm kind of shocked. I do, though, because of the price and all, I do want to save it for times where I really want to have that perfect finish. On a day-to-day, I just do a little quick powder and it's not a big deal. I don't have it out, but I'll use the Joe Fresh Loose Setting Powder, the Fit Me by Maybelline, whatever. It's not a big deal. But this one, definitely, when I want to, either I really need to feel good that day and just have something to treat myself, or that I really want to have a nice finish for pictures or a special event or anything, this is the one that I would use for sure. I will have to check on Flashback though. I don't know the answer to that. But anyway, for feeling special and looking good, feeling good in my skin for a special event, the Hourglass Veil powder is definitely one that I would use. Now, last but not least, let's talk about this little guy. You know how I was talking about the experience with the Becca Hydra Mist, kind of weird? The experience with this has been really good. And I use this as I would the ambient lighting palette and the Becca brightening powder. I use it as a finish at the end of having done all my makeup steps, just to kind of do one last sweep over my face. And out of the three though, this one is the most pleasant to use. I use, the only thing is it's a little bit tough to open sometimes. I'm getting better at it. Some people might not keep this little cushion. I'm probably going to get tired of using it. But for now, I'm okay with taking it out and whatnot. These little pearls inside, what you do is you take a big fluffy brush, as big as the diameter will allow, and you swirl it around so that it picks up the different colors. And you just then dust it all over your face. You can also buff it in. And because it's all the colors, you can achieve a beautiful, slightly blurred look on your face. It just kind of ties everything in and gives you a beautiful finish. It also has a mild fragrance. It's not overpowering, it's very mild, but there is a fragrance, and I find it quite pleasant. That's why I keep it with my perfumes. It's a reminder for me that this is a fragranced product. And it's also super pretty. I mean, the lid is just beautiful. And they come with different editions of this, so you can keep a lookout for the type of packaging you might want, because this truly is an experience product. You feel chic when you use it. It feels good. The mild fragrance, the look it gives your skin. It really is a super nice finish to all the cream and powder products that you put on your face. Now, of course, I would do lipstick after doing this, but you can pretty much do every step on your face and then put this on as a final step again before you do your lip products. I was confused by this product. I was thinking, why do people rave about it? What's the big deal? And I really do think it's a treat. If you're not big on the pearls as the mode of getting the powder, I would suggest then the pressed version of this. There's a pressed compact of this that does the same thing. It is more expensive than these, but you have to pick what it is that makes sense for your preferences and your lifestyle. But if you like to have a little fun with that last little finishing aspect of your face makeup, this has been really nice. So from an experience perspective, I would definitely say this one wins. For a value for money, I would definitely say this one wins. I would not poo-poo this product. I just think it's not that different from Becca. And that goes for the powders. When it comes to the blush and the bronzer, I do like those more. The Mood Exposure and the Illuminating Bronzer Light, I like these very much. And when it comes to a setting powder, hands down, the Veil wins it. If you really love this Hydro Mist from Becca, can you let me know what aspect of it you're really big on? I could see it if you're in a warm climate, that it might be kind of refreshing to use, but I would be very curious to know if you really love this product, what aspect of it you're big on. And maybe, you know, when you have a small kind of sample size like this, sometimes it doesn't give you the same feel as the big size. So again, I would be very curious. I would also be curious to know, what are your favorite illuminating powders, especially if it's not something that I have tested out? And also, so illuminating powders and setting powders. If you want to offer blush and bronzer, certainly. I didn't obviously test a whole lot of those. I kept it to these three brands, but I would love to hear from you. And I would love to hear what you think of if you have tried it, a Guerlain blush and also a Guerlain bronzer. I have not gone that far. Guerlain is super expensive and I wanted to try one product to start off with, but I'd be curious to hear your experience if you have had any with that brand. So that's it. Becca comes out on top for value, and Guerlain comes out on top for experiential reasons. I hope you enjoyed this Battle of the Brands and my thoughts on those 3 categories of products and 3 brands. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.